Hey yogis, welcome to day 7. This is the second time I'm recording this because yesterday I did a fabulous video and my sound cut out halfway through. I have no idea what happened. So this is take 2 of day 7. Here we go. Let's hit the mat. So today we are at day 7. So we have officially crossed over the halfway point of day 6 of the 12 days of yoga. And we're going to finish out with our chakra balancing is basically what I've been doing, but I just have not called it that. So we started with the root, we moved up to the sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and now we're at the crown. So crown chakra. The crown chakra is basically our portal to our connection with the divine. So the divine can be whatever it means to your personal life. It can be God, it can be the universe, it can be whatever, your higher self. And so we want to make sure that that chakra is active and operating so that we can receive divine guidance and meaningful thought and wisdom as we make decisions to move our lives further along our path on our journey. So we're going to do a few poses today to open up that crown chakra and make sure that it is operating efficiently. So in your mind's eye, when we think about the crown chakra, I want you to think about a small white wheel spinning clockwise and exuding this most beautiful bright white light that you could possibly think of. Almost a blinding white light, pure white light. That is the crown chakra. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first pose, so let me explain it to you before we get started. So in order to activate the crown chakra, we are going to be doing a few poses that include less intimidating inversions. So an inversion is any time that you go upside down. I know some people are familiar with inversion tables that help with back issues. It decompresses the spine when you go upside down. And so handstand, headstand are the two main inversions that you would see in a asana yoga practice, the physical movement yoga practice. So anytime we're going upside down, our heads are lower than our heart, that's considered an inversion. So before we get started, just remember, as I said previously, make sure you're cleared by your doctor to do these things. If you have any neck issues, headache, anything that might be exacerbated by these poses, then I would really suggest that you refrain from doing them until you're cleared by a doctor. You're going to have access to this video. You can always come back and try it later. You can watch and see or take the video and show your doctor and say, hey, is it safe for me to do this? None of these are scary, not to me, and I'm hoping they won't be for you. It's just enough to give you a taste of it, and to keep in mind that when you come out of that inverted pose, you know, blood is basically rushing to your head, to your brain. So we want to come out slowly and mindfully. We don't want to, whip our heads back or rush out of the pose so that we don't get dizzy or have any other issues. Also, this is really good because even though we have blood flow through the brain, it is intensified when you do an inversion. So parts of the brain are getting flooded with that good oxygenated blood. So it actually has a lot of positive benefits. Inversions actually have a lot of positive benefits that I'll probably talk about or do a class on sometime later in the future. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first pose is something that everybody is probably familiar with. It's probably the poster pose for yoga when you think about it, and that is downward facing dog. So, downward facing dog, in order to get into the pose, and if you are not able to hold it or you're not quite comfortable enough with it, that's okay. Eventually you will be. So it's practice and all is coming. But downward facing dog, we can kind of start in tabletop, but we're going to make a few adjustments from tabletop. So instead of our hands being right under our shoulders, our hands are going to be up further towards the top of our mat just a little bit. And we're going to push ourselves up. And the movement or the action is that we're trying to push our tailbones up towards the sky. So we don't want to lock our knees. In fact, a lot of people probably will need to bend their knees just a little bit so your heels are not going to touch the floor. You want to try to have the creases of your arms right behind your elbow facing forward. And then you're pushing, your head is going to drop, and you're going to try to push your chest back to meet your thighs, basically. This is an active pose. So a lot of times people think this is a resting pose, and in some flows you do go into downward facing dog to catch your breath, take a few breaths. So it is somewhat of a resting pose, but actively we've got a whole lot going on in our arms, our tailbone, the backs of our legs. So while we're here, I want you to keep breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. Of course, I can't do that while I'm talking, but remain conscious and aware of your breath in this pose. And while we're here, we're only going to be here for a few breaths. Go ahead and pedal out your feet. So like bend your left knee, try to straighten your right leg, bend your right knee, try to straighten the left leg, and just kind of go back and forth with that just to loosen up a little bit. So this feels really good to me because I did run this morning. So it's a nice way to kind of stretch out my calves. And then keep trying to push that tailbone up towards the sky and push your chest back towards your thighs. And then we're going to slowly bring our knees down to the mat to come out of it. All right, so from here, I'm just checking my mic because yesterday, as soon as I came out of this, my sound was going. I want to watch my video later. So, we're going to take just a minute just to give our wrists a break before we get into our next pose. When I first started practicing yoga, that was a thing. My wrists were tired because I was putting all my weight in my wrist. But what you want to try to do is grip with your fingertips and your knuckles and have more of the weight shifted into those areas instead of your wrist. But all that comes with like additional practice and training, and you slowly build up the strength to hold the pose longer. So the next pose we're going to come into is a wide-legged forward fold. So this is actually one of my favorites. You want to get up on your mat, and you want to have the sides of your feet parallel with the shorter edges of the mat, so you are long ways. Your mat is going long ways, so you're going to stand like this. You can have a slight bend in your knees, and you want to have your toes slightly pointed in, and we're going to put our hands on the top of our hips, and we're going to slowly start to hinge over. So we want to keep our back straight, not rounded. We want to have a straight back, and we want to just come down. Now, if you can't come down and touch the floor, no problem. It'll come with practice. You want to go just as low as you can. And you want to have your legs as wide for this practice as is comfortable to you. Later, in other practices, I'll get into a little bit more of the mechanics, because ideally, you kind of want to have your feet spread as far apart as your arm span. But that's a little bit later. We can do that. And what I mean when I say that, just to show you really quick, if you just come up for just a second. So when my arms are out like this, my feet are pretty much right under my hands. But I know not everybody can go that deeply. So just as wide as you can go comfortably for this practice. So I'm going to hinge back over, keep my back straight, and we're going to be here for just a few breaths. So breathing in and out. Through your nose. And if you can, try to grab your right ankle with your right hand and maybe grab your big right toe with your left first two fingers and thumb. And that'll create a really nice side stretch for you. Just keep breathing. And then we want to shift our hands over and grab that left ankle with our left hand and that left big toe with our two right first and middle finger and our thumb. And get a nice side stretch on the right. And then while we're here, we also want to come over, bring both hands to the center of the mat, basically like right under our face. So put your left hand so it's right under your face. And we're going to take that right arm and twist up. If it's comfortable, you can look up. This gives you a little break in the inversion, and twists are just beneficial all the time. They're really good for our spines. They're good for detoxifying our organs. Come down. We're going to switch. Right hand under our face, left arm up. And speaking of detoxifying our organs, I want to encourage you to drink lots of water when you finish your yoga practice, because you've moved a lot of things around and you want to flush any toxins or stagnant energy out of your system. Okay? Bring both hands down. Now we're going to slowly heel toe our feet until our legs are just a little bit closer together to give you a little bit more stability while you put your hands on your hips and slowly come out of that pose. Okay? So that was forward fold. Now we're going to come down onto our knees and sit back on our heels, because we're going to do rabbit pose. So rabbit pose is a cross between hero pose, close leg child pose, and camel. So from here, what you're going to do is make sure that your legs are together. You're sitting on top of your heels. You're going to bring your arms by your side, and then slowly bring your head down and roll up onto the crown of your head. And while you roll up onto the crown of your head, you're going to automatically lift your seat off of your heels. And this is rabbit pose. In this pose, I think about how much intensity I feel just sitting up, rolling up onto the crown. And then I think about that in comparison to actual full-blown headstand, or all your body weight is on the crown of your head. You can just relax, your arms can just kind of naturally fall to the side. Just a couple more breaths. Then we're going to slowly start to come out of it. bring your hands up by your sides and then slowly come up. Now, that one, even though we were sitting, got lots of blood flow going. So, all right. Now, we're going to move into shoulder stand. Shoulder stand is this one you might want to watch. This is just an option for people who think that they might be able to go a little bit further with this. When I was doing yoga at the yoga room many years ago, I was not yet proficient in headstand, and so shoulder stand would be offered as an optional pose while other people were kicking up into headstand. So the way shoulder stand works, and even though we're going to be on our backs, there's going to be an increased amount of blood flow to the head because of the positioning of the legs. Okay, so for this one, you're going to have your feet flat on the floor initially, knees bent, roll down onto your back, and then this is a pose where you really don't want to have a bun or a ponytail. You want to have your head as flat to the floor as possible, and you're basically going to roll up and catch the top of your hips and cradle your pelvis in your hands. This is shoulder stand. Toes are pointed, legs are straight, and we're breathing. Now from here, I'm going to let my feet fall behind my head, and I'm going to bring my hands down by my sides, or on the side of the mat, because my sides are over my head. But, and I'm going to keep breathing. This is plow pose. Be here for just a couple breaths. And then to come out of plow, I'm going to place my hands back up around my pelvis, my hips, and I'm going to slowly roll my feet up and down. Then I'm going to stretch out my legs, and we're going to go into Shavasana. So from here, after that, this is definitely a resting pose. If you join me in shoulder stand and plow, we want to take just a few breaths here, envisioning that bright white light shining from the crown of our heads through our crown chakra. I would venture to guess that they have been adequately activated. Our crown chakras have been adequately activated this morning. And then our positive affirmation is, I am consistently and directly connected with the divine. I am consistently and directly connected with the divine. And then slowly roll to one side and slowly push yourself up. Now we're going to come to a seated position, hands at our heart center. Namaste. Thank you so much, yogis. I'll see you for day 8.